Make your YouTube videos look cinematic by improving your light setup in easy steps. So in this video, we'll be taking your light setup from average to cinematic. You may be thinking to yourself, how can I get a cinematic video when I don't own an expensive camera, or I don't have an expensive light? I don't even have a big YouTube space to film like, the big and established YouTubers. Don't get worried, because in this video, we'll be shooting this video in a very small space with a budget light and a budget camera. So fasten your seatbelt and let's start exploring how you can make your videos go from average to cinematic. So the first step you are going to take in making your videos look cinematic is put off all ambient light, switch off your bulbs, close the curtains so that natural light won't spill in. Let it be a completely dark scene. In fact, let's do a demonstration. So the first step we are going to be taking in making our scene look cinematic is put off all ambient lights, either by blocking off the curtains or putting off the bulb. Just make sure no light is spilling into your scene. Make sure your scene is as dark as this. Then we'll move on to the next step. And the next step involves introducing our main light. This right here on my left hand is what we call the main light. The function of the main light is to illuminate the subject in the scene. And just like the name implies, the main light is, the main light. It's the primary light. It should be the most powerful light in the scene, the most brightest light in the scene. Okay, so now to get this soft look that you are seeing in this scene, you need to do what we call a diffusion. Now, a diffusion material is what you put in front of your power source, your light source, to make sure it's spread softly, to make sure the light fall off is soft on your subject. The bigger the diffusion, the softer the light. The smaller the diffusion, the harder the light. So now I'm using a 140 cm softbox to make sure that this light is diffused, is soft. Another thing we'll be talking about is the placement of your light. Now the light is placed at a 45-degree angle towards me, the subject. You can light your scene any way you want it. You can make it frontal, you can make it side split lighting, anyhow you want to do it, but just make sure the main light is the most powerful light. Make it, focused, make it directed to the subject. You can see the background is a little bit dark because the light is focused on me, the subject. And another thing you can do to make your lights focused and directed is including a grid. Now a grid makes sure the lights doesn't spill off and get scattered around the background. So a grid is just an addition. If you don't have a grid, there's no problem. If a one light setup is all you can afford, it's fine, but we can still take this scene just a little bit further by introducing a backlight. So let's turn on the backlight. So the light you are seeing behind me is what we call the backlight, and the main function of the backlight is to highlight the subject, to create a separation from the background and the foreground. You can see that it creates an outline on me, the subject, and it just gives it an extra juice, just make it more cinematic. There's nothing bad in working with one light. It just depends on what you can afford. And you can see that our light setup is way more better than what we had at the beginning. So let's do a quick recap. First things first, block off all ambient lights, close off curtains, turn off bulbs, screens, anything that will make sure that there's spillage of light in your scene. Make sure you put those away. Then you introduce the main light. And what you have to put in mind again is the diffusion. The bigger the diffusion, the softer the light. If you want this soft look, make sure your diffusion material is big enough to soften the light on the subject. Then introduce the backlight to create dimension, to add depth, to create a highlight, to separate the subject from the background. That's what you do with the backlight. And just like that, your scene has gone from average to cinematic. So make sure you try these steps and improve it. Dial how you want your main light to be. Do you want it to be frontal? Do you want it to be diagonal? anyhow you want to do it, but just make sure you put all these steps into practice. So the last thing in this video is make sure you subscribe to the channel to get more filmmaking and photography tips like this, lighting setups, all those kind of good stuff. And I'll see you in the next video.